we're here backstage at TechCrunch TV, and Kevin Rose has just come off a great interview with Colleen Taylor.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for coming. It's a tradition, I guess. TechCrunch just roped us up to have
right.
Arrington interview you.
I know. I felt bad he didn't get to bust my chops like he normally does.
I mean, Colleen was solid.
That's true. She was solid. She did throw a couple hard-hitting questions out there.
I liked your question about what article has really pissed you off recently.
I know.
It's like she's clearly done the research and knows. I mean,
Right.
obviously that Business Insider piece, but she doesn't spell it out.
Yeah, it's all good. I like the tough questions.
So this Business Insider piece,
Yes.
what do you think was the biggest misconception in it that you've never had, like an entrepreneurial success?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is that they, they mentioned Dig and what it had sold for, and they mentioned some of the other startups that I was involved in, and I don't think that, I've had the huge multi-$100 million exit, but certainly Revision 3, a company that I co-founded around the same time as Dig, sold to Discovery and made all of our investors a lot of money, and the piece didn't even mention that. So it was just the fact checking and the fact that they didn't have an interview actually with me before they wrote it was just like something that they should have done. It was something that typically you see of kind of a junior journalist, but I don't know.
How much did Revision 3 sell for?
I don't think they ever went public about that, but it was over $35+ million. So it was a good exit. There were some earnouts and stuff there as well on top of that, but yeah, it was a good exit. We only raised like 6 or 7 or something like that.
So how much did your last startup, Milk, sell for?
I'm not going to disclose that, but Milk also made all of our investors money. All our investors, advisors, everyone made money. It wasn't a huge exit, but it was a good exit.
So you built Milk, and then you went to Google+.
Yep.
How many members of Milk are still at Google+?
2.
Daniel Burka and who else?
Daniel Burka and one other designer that we had.
Are they liking it there?
Yeah, actually Daniel now has basically has quite a few people reporting to him on the design side, and so you'll see a lot of his work.
As he should.
He's an amazing designer. So you'll see a lot of his work probably hit Google+. I don't know when. I don't want to talk about the releases, but in the next major releases that they have will be quite a bit of his work. We kind of joined, and then obviously there's a cycle between joining, getting set up, coding stuff, and then it actually seeing the light of day. And so I know he's done a lot of really great work there. And so it's going to be exciting to see some of his design make it into the real world.
So what happened with you and Chris at Google? So you guys arrived at Google+, you set up your desks, and then you're like, no.
No, I think that Google, Vic and Bradley over Google+ are awesome guys, and they gave us the flexibility to kind of like, Google is very much about you should be where you really want to be and where you think you're going to make the most impact, and so they call it like the googly thing to do internally, and so for us they said, get set up here, kind of get your feet wet a little bit, see what you think, and figure out where the best home is. So I was looking at like the self-driving car stuff, like there's a lot of really cool stuff going on at Google, and Google Plus for me would have been going back into another startup, and I kind of been burnt out from all the Dig stuff and all the other things I've been doing for the last 7 or 8 years or 9 years now, and I just needed a break, and I also have been very passionate about investing. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go and jump over to Ventures. They were cool with it, and now I'm at Ventures and it feels like home.
So you were in Fab, you were in OMG Pop, you were in MGMoko, you're in Twitter. I mean, you've got a pretty impressive history of investments.
Thank you.
I know that Google Ventures does a lot of data-driven stuff, and it seems like you're more of an instinctual investor or a kind of connector sort of investor. Did you see that there was some kind of was there a conflict between your kind of instinctual, emotional investing and Google's
if
data?
anything, it gives me more power.
Approach? Really?
Yeah, because there's a lot of people like Google Ventures. We have a lot of really brilliant people there. Rich Miner, co-founder of Android, Joe Kraus, co-founder of Excite. I mean, the partners there are just top notch, and so
David Crane's
awesome. I mean, it's like I could just keep going on and on about the list of partners, but I'm learning a ton from these guys. So I look at these guys as kind of like mentors in a way. So I very much bring that gut-based investment to the table, which is something that has served me well over the years. But now that I get a little bit of everything, so I get enterprise experience, I get people that are very good at analytics and figuring and crunching the numbers behind the scenes about how to track and quantify certain companies, and so I'm learning a lot every single day that I spend there. So for me, it's like it's going back to school, because I've always done the angel thing, which I'm very comfortable with, and is very it just comes pretty easy to me. And then to actually go and do the VC side of things, where there's a deeper amount of due diligence required when you're doing a $5 or $10 million deal, and sitting in those meetings and learning about these different perspectives that are very unique, and it just teaches me a lot.
So Colleen mentioned earlier that her feedback from startups, so that YC, like it's Google Ventures MO to undercut in valuation cap on on a seed round. Colleen said that wasn't, when she interviewed people, that wasn't the case. Is it Google Ventures MO to undercut the valuation?
We have a a $200 million yearly fund. It really doesn't move the needle one way or another. If a company is at $8 million cap, or a $10 million cap, or a 12. But for me personally, when I go out there and I try and do a seed investment, I'm not going to invest in something that I consider to be overvalued. And so, when looking at these YC companies, I think that you typically see a range of an $8 million cap to a $12 million cap. That's kind of the range that they've been launching at. Well, it depends on the company. I think that some of those companies are probably a $2 or $3 million cap. Others are probably a $15 or $20 million cap. So
what was BufferBox?
I can't disclose that. But BufferBox was one of those companies that I invested in from YC. He came to me and he goes, "Hey, listen, this is the cap. What do you think?" And I'm like, "That sounds fair. Let's do it." And we just did it. So it's not. We're not. There's never been a discussion internally about how can we lower these caps, how can we trick these entrepreneurs. That's just not what we stand for. It's not something that we would do. And for us, it's really, for me personally, when I go out and do a seed investment, will there be times when I see an $8 million cap and ask for 5? Absolutely. That entrepreneur doesn't have to say yes, but that's how I value the company. I look at this and I say, I just can't do this. Like, it wouldn't be prudent to do that with the amount of someone else's money. And that's what you are. You're investing someone else's money. So you have to decide how much risk is there in this business, and where should I value it.
So of the 10 top YC companies that you put out on Google Plus the other day, which one's the top, and what was their valuation cap?
Which one is my favorite out of all those?
One of them, BufferBox.
I think BufferBox and Clever are probably one that didn't announce that they went through YC, but that I'm talking to. But those two, I think, were probably, well, there's 3 or 4 in there that they're awesome. But Clever for me, or I would say BufferBox for me, solves a problem that I run into every single day. I get home, there's a UPS little ticket on my door saying that I missed my package. I'm pissed off. I missed it the second time. I have to go to the little, it's just a nightmare. And this is just a really elegant solution for that. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
YC valuations versus non-YC valuations, 1/3 more?
Well,
worth it?
Here's the thing that you have to understand that I think that no one ever talks about. And that is when you drive valuations up to a certain point, let's say 10, 12, 15, whatever it may be, you're cutting out a lot of really good investors. So there's a lot of money in play right now that is kind of like index money, where you get someone coming in with $100 million and saying, I'm going to put in a $100K check in all of these different companies. And they're not really spending a lot of time with these companies. But then there's some angel friends of mine that have built amazing businesses in the past, that are great advisors, that are very passionate about spending a lot of time with these companies. I mean, Prager, Tim Ferriss, like Evan Williams, there's a bunch of people that I feel, if these valuations keep going up, it just doesn't make sense for some of these angels to invest. It's just, with all the acqui-hires and things like that that happen, they're not going to make any money. And if they're not investing and they're not going to make any money, then you're not getting great mentors, and you're losing out. The entrepreneurs are losing out on that, which really kind of sucks, And so, it's these things all go in cycles though. Like for me, I mean, gosh, 4 years ago, when I first sat down with Pinterest, Ben, the founder and CEO, offered, they had some really decent traction, and he gave me a term sheet at a $5 million valuation. And at the time I was like, wow, that's really high. You know,
and you passed on Pinterest?
Yeah, and I passed on Pinterest.
That's amazing.
But,
it could be $5 billion at some point.
You know, that's the one that will forever have gotten away.
It got away from everybody.
But I'm just saying,
for Bessemer.
I'm just saying, like, you know, you go in there now and you see some of these companies that are 3 times that don't have a fraction of the traction that Pinterest did at that time, and it's hard to figure out where are we in the bubble life cycle and when is that going to correct itself. So
people are saying next batch.
It's not a bubble that's hurting anyone though. The only people it's really hurting is the entrepreneurs because they're not getting great investors, and it's also hurting the fact that I just feel there'll just be less people investing, less high quality people that are investing. You know.
Awesome. Well, we've got to wrap up, but thank you for coming backstage and talking to us again for
awesome. Thanks for having me again.
For the 4th time with
I always love it. I mean, you guys literally, this conference is like 3 blocks away from my house, so it's like I can just walk here. It's easy. It's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
Cool. Thanks.